Welcome to episode 55 of the Talking Friars podcast. I'm your host, Ben Fadden, here coming to you after the Padres were able to salvage a series split in this mini two-game series with the Los Angeles Angels at Petco Park. They win it 8-5. They lost game one, 4-0. We'll get to that. I got some interesting stuff about Trent Grisham that I saw earlier this morning as I'm recording on Wednesday night after the Padres obviously beat the Angels. There's some interesting stuff about Trent Grisham and a possible extension. There's a tough road trip now coming up. And this was the Padres' last two opportunities to play teams that are or to play a team that is under 500, a team that is not, or excuse me, they're a team that is a non-contending team. So this was a series that I think that they should have swept, but they didn't, and that was because the Padres offense wasn't able to score any runs on Tuesday night, despite Blake Snell pitching his butt off and going 6 2/3 hitless innings, had a perfect game through 6 innings. But the offense didn't score any runs off of Packy Naughton and a bunch of other no-name guys. Raciel Iglesias closed the game, but he's not even in his prime anymore like he was with the Reds. So I guess let's start with Tuesday's game. Obviously, they lost 4-0, like I mentioned. Shohei Ohtani was not in the lineup. He wasn't in the lineup on Wednesday because it's in a National League ballpark. The Angels, like I said, aren't contending, so there's no need to risk injury and put him out in the outfield. So there's no DH, so that's why he wasn't playing. Phil Gosselin and Jack Mayfield were their 3 and 4 hitters. So that's just some perspective about how bad this Angels lineup was, how bad this Angels team really is right now. And so it kind of makes it even worse if the Padres weren't able to take both games. But Snell, going into this start, I was definitely confident in him. This is the first time all year where I'm going into his starts now, and I'm expecting him to pitch, like a Cy Young caliber pitcher. And this is where the first time this year where we're going into the starts, and I'm confident that he's going to put the Padres in a position to win games. Earlier in the year, that didn't happen. In August, he had a 1.72 ERA. So that's exactly what you want if you're a Padre fan, if you're Jace Tingler, if you're Ben Fritz, if you're the front office, if you're Blake Snell, if you're the bullpen, because he's going to save you some innings where he taxed you innings, at the beginning of the year because he wasn't able to go deep. 5 innings, less than 5 innings, giving up 7 runs to the A's as a start at Petco earlier this year that stood out. But he pitched really, really well. 10 of Snell's first 18 outs were strikeouts. And again, his curveball, the Angels lineup, it's not strong. It wasn't strong. So I'm not trying to say that this was a Dodger caliber start, but he, where he went into the 8th inning, that's obviously a totally different caliber, level of a lineup compared to the Angels, who didn't have Trout, no Ohtani, no Upton, no Rendon. So it's not a strong lineup, but he was on his game. His breaking ball was probably the best I've seen it all year. Maybe that was just because the Angels were too aggressive and they were just swinging at everything. But those are still major league hitters at the end of the day. And those breaking balls, man, that's the best I've seen Snell pitch, breaking ball wise, how the pitch movement that I've seen this season. The best start that Snell's had this year, obviously when he went 7 no-hit innings against the Diamondbacks. But again, that's back to the argument about the lack of competition, the caliber of the lineup. I would argue that his best start was against the Dodgers, where it ended striking out Bellinger after he gave up that 1 home run to Will Smith, where he was dominant pretty much the entire way through. And it was obviously against arguably the best lineup in baseball. But back to Tuesday, the first base runner, David Fletcher, walk. He would walk Jack Mayfield, and those walks always seem to come back and bite pitchers. It doesn't matter if you're on the Yankees, Blue Jays, Dodgers, Reds, Cubs, Padres. It doesn't matter what team. When you walk guys, free passes, you're welcoming them, another base runner to come around and score. And that's what happened when he allowed the first hit of the night, 6 2/3 innings through the game. Joe Adell, two RBI single past the dive of Jake Cronenworth at short. That made it 2-0 Angels. And that's literally all the Angels needed. Again, it was pretty embarrassing, I think. Yeah, the Padres they had some tough breaks, right? They had some, Machado got on, he singled to extend his hitting streak to 10. He extended it to 11, by the way, on Wednesday. But Cronenworth, right after that Machado single, a liner, it ended up being a double play. So yeah, that was some bad luck. There was some bad luck, but I think most of the time the approaches just weren't really very good. 4 hits, that's not good enough when you're facing Packy Naughton, and a bunch of other, no-name relievers. That the Padres, they have plenty of guys able to produce better offensively than what they've been doing. And I'll talk about it, kind of at the end of this series recap. But this is one of those games where you might look back at it. This is a game you should have won. Blake Snell pitches his butt off, 6 2/3 shutouts, hitless innings, and you didn't score any runs. And it's not like you were facing Walker Buehler or Max Scherzer. That would be understandable. It would still be frustrating, but this is more frustrating because of the level of the lack of, high caliber pitching that they were facing. But Snell's final line was really, really good. He went 14 innings without giving up a hit. If you combine that Dodgers start where he struck out Bellinger to end his night, and then the next start, the 7 no-hit innings against Arizona, and then obviously the 6 2/3 innings here against the Angels, that's 14 innings where he went without giving up a hit. So that'll play. But I saw it. I think Kevin Acee of the Union Tribune tweeted that the Padres are like 1-3, and Blake Snell's like 4 best starts of the season. And so that can't happen when someone pitches that well like that. You need to score runs. I get that the Angels did end up scoring 2 more runs after Snell departed. But you tell me you can't give them a few runs. So that's what made it frustrating, and that's what made it head scratching. Like you wasted a really, really good start from Blake Snell. That's the bottom line. That's what it came down to, is you wasted a really good start, arguably one of the best starts of the year from Blake Snell. And you weren't facing the best pitchers in the league. So that's what makes it frustrating. Emilio Pagan gave up another home run. That's where the other 2 runs came, or the solo homer to Luis Rengifo in the 9th made it 3-0. Pagan's given up 4 runs in his last 3 appearances. I don't even know the last time I was like really confident in Pagan in one of those bigger leverage situations, because maybe it was, I want to say probably like the Washington series in Washington after the All-Star break, where I kind of like just stopped like having like, a lot of confidence in Pagan. He can come in and, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but he can come in and pitch really well when it feels like the game's not really on the line or it's not really close. But then when it is, it feels like he gives up a homer and then he leaves. Like it's one of those scenarios where I get Pomerantz as a lefty, but it's like, dang, I wish we had Drew Pomerantz here. Or dang, wish we had Keone Kela healthy. I get probably Padres fans are like, oh yeah, he played for this team. Yeah. So that's Pagan. But this game, like I mentioned, it falls under the category of games Padres should have won. Snell gives up one hit. Ohtani wasn't in the lineup for the Angels. And the Angels started a guy named Packy Knott. But hey, you can't win when you don't score any runs. And so can't blame it on the pitching. You got to blame it on the offense. And the offense didn't show up. So again, Padres lose 4-0 on Tuesday. 73-65 is their record. Good news, though, that they would win on Wednesday earlier tonight, to improve to 74-65. They won this one by 3 runs. They should have won it by more than 3 runs, obviously. The Angels literally gifted them this game. So I'm not going to, come on here and say, Padres offense is back or, anything like that, because if you watch the game, yeah, an 8-run second inning, you're looking at the box score, MLB.com or whatnot, the night after or the morning after, if you're, looking at it on, Thursday morning, great, 8-run second inning. However, if you watch the game, I guess they were patient, but literally the Angels pitchers could not throw a strike. This was one of the most weirdest, unique innings I've ever seen a pitching staff pitch before, ever. Like, they literally could not find the strike zone. Bases loaded, they walked 3 guys in a row: Tatis, Hosmer, Myers. And then a wild pitch with the bases loaded scores Tatis. So Tatis walked to first, then walked to second, walked to third, and pretty much walked home on a wild pitch. He didn't do anything. That's how bad the Angels pitching was. And so, you're gonna remember the walks. What I'm gonna remember is when Will Myers was up, it was ball 4. He ended up getting ball 4 later in that bat, but it was ball 4, and a pitch was foot outside, and the umpire called it a strike. That's how bad it was. Like, they couldn't throw strikes. The strikes that were called weren't even strikes. They weren't even in the strike zone. So, again, I guess they were patient, right? You could say, that's good. But it's not like I'm saying that the Padres offense is back or anything, or I'm really confident in the offense going into the Dodgers series, this big road trip that I'll get to, because you can't be, last night they didn't score a run off the Angels pitching when Blake Snell pitched his butt off. Now, Adam Frazier, I will, give props to him. He's been struggling. He hasn't been the same hitter since he came over from Pittsburgh in the trade. But he came through with 3 RBIs in that second inning, 2 hits, 1 sprayed to the opposite field, another through first and second into right field that drove in 2 more runs to make it 8-0. So good job out of him, good at bats. He's obviously a contact guy. I feel like I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I feel like he's striking out more. He's striking out more than he did in Pittsburgh. Is that the approach that Damian Easley, the coaching staff, is trying to teach him or something to get more power? I don't know, but that shouldn't be happening if it is, because they should know when they acquired him, he's not a power hitter. They know he's more of a Jake Cronenworth type with less power than Jake has. And they need him to stay within his approach, make contact, do those type of things, because that's where Frazier's at his best. And that's where he can drive in runs if you have him, later in the order, because those singles, those doubles, those rare doubles like he hit in the second inning to start off that second inning, those will end up being huge, driving in runs in close games. So he needs to just stick to his approach. Hopefully this is kind of like a launching pad for him. And so maybe this is something that gets him going. But so props to him. But again, I'm not going to come here and say that, the Padres offense is back when it was a walk parade. It was like a little leaguer pitching there. He couldn't throw strikes. It's like he thought balls were strikes. He did not know what he was doing. It was the yips. The pitchers that came in, they had the yips. It was like the third inning, and they'd already used 4 relievers because no one could throw strikes. So I'm not going to say that the offense is back, but it was good that they got out, that 8-run inning. Frazier, again, those 3 RBIs. Cronenworth had an RBI hit. So good for him. But I guess the way things have been going, and looking at the schedule, you kind of have to come at this with more of a negative view because they didn't win on Tuesday in a game that they should have won, like I've been saying this whole time, with Snell pitching great. The offense scores 0 runs. That can't happen. Snell put them in a position to win that game, and the offense didn't show up. And then tonight, you're up 8-0. You should not see Mark Melancon in the game in the 9th inning, unless it was it was a plan going into the game that Melancon was going to get work, which I don't think was, with the big Dodger series coming up. You can't have Melancon pitch in that game when you're up 8 runs. You have an 8-run second inning, and guess what? You didn't score any runs the rest of the game. That can't happen against the Angels. So while it was great that they scored 8 runs, they went the last, 6 innings, because they didn't hit in the bottom of the 9th, last 6 innings without scoring a run. So the offense obviously isn't back. And Melancon has no business pitching in this game. But that's what happened. Darvish pitched well, 1 earned run, 6 innings, 3 hits, 1 walk, 7 strikeouts, just a hair under 100 pitches, 99 pitches. He had better control, better command. Loved what I saw out of him today. I definitely, like I mentioned on the last couple episodes, when Darvish pitched in a series, I wasn't confident really in him. I was putting him more in the Arrieta category, believe it or not, just the way he was pitching. Just keep the Padres in the game, because I felt like he was battling some injury issues. But it looks like he found the command, and if his command stays like this, if he's keeping that fastball low and away like he was, I think that you have to now, that I will put Darvish back in that same bucket as Musgrove and Snell in terms of what you're expecting out of him in starts. Go 6-7 innings, give up 3 or less runs, right? That's what you got to expect out of him, because he showed he was the guy doing that in the first half of the season, him and Musgrove. So good start from Darvish, but again, back to Melancon, shouldn't even pitched in the 9th inning, but the bullpen, it should not happen. And also Lamet, again, he's kind of feeling himself, in the bullpen, feeling himself out, getting his feet wet. I think it was his 3rd relief appearance out of the bullpen since coming off the IL, knowing that this is his role now the rest of the year. Gives up a home run. Daniel Hudson gives up another home run. Again, location was the problem for him. You can see the video up on the Talking Friars Twitter. It was supposed to be Caratini had fastball low and away, and it ended up being up and away, more upper in the middle spot of the plate, and Joe Adell deposited it into the right field seats. That can't happen. The location, got to be able to hit your spots, especially with the fastball. It wasn't even a breaking ball. Again, it's easy for me to say this. I've never pitched in the big leagues. I'm just sitting here, on my computer talking to you, and but I watch every game, and I know that Daniel Hudson pitched well with Washington, and we gave up Mason Thompson for him, who was a good young arm who's been pitching pretty well, I think, for Washington. young arm that could have helped us in the future. And when you acquire Daniel Hudson, World Series experience, made the final out in the World Series, all that, you're expecting better, and he just hasn't pitched like that. So I think it was one of those, it's kind of like a Blake Snell moment where Blake Snell earlier in the year hadn't lived up to expectations. Same thing here with Hudson, at least in a Padre uniform, I think. Just really hasn't lived up to expectations. I can look up Daniel Hudson stats, obviously coming off this home run that he gave up to Joe Adell. But with the Padres, so wow, I didn't even know it was this staggering. So Hudson's 34 years old. With Washington this year, he posted a 2.20 earned run average. That's pretty dang good for a reliever, especially on a non-contending team like the Nats were. But on the flip side now, compare that to his ERA with the Padres. Again, Washington 2.20 ERA this year. With the Padres, smaller sample size, but 6.52 ERA. Over 4 runs increase in his ERA. Now with the Padres, that is not good, and that kind of tells the story of the bullpen kind of being a problem, an issue going into the stretch run, where it kind of sucks because the rotation and the bullpen aren't. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but they haven't really both pitched great at the same time. And I'm talking like the top 3 in the rotation, Musgrove, Snell, Darvish, who are now pitching well at the same time. And then the bullpen as a whole pitching well at the same time and just shutting down people. You know, at the beginning of the year, you had Musgrove and Darvish pitching well and the bullpen pitching well, but you did not have Snell pitch well with that. So I'm talking Snell, Darvish, Musgrove, and the bullpen, you know, pretty much as a whole, them combining together. I think they're going to need to do that the rest of the way if they're going to want to have a chance of making the postseason. So that's a concern, I think. Melanson, I trust. Pagan, I don't really trust. Hudson is iffy. I trust him more than Pagan. I trust Tim Hill. I trust Austin Adams. You know, despite him hitting all these guys. Just because of the track record that he's had this year. If you look up the stats, look up the game logs, a very, very mass majority of his games, he doesn't give up any runs. Stammen, I trust. Chris Matt, I don't think he's going to get very many innings. Same goes with Diaz. Weathers, I don't really trust right now. So I named 3 or 4 guys there that I don't really trust. And so you'd go Melanson in the 9th, maybe Hudson in the 8th. But again, I don't really trust him that much based on how he's pitched in a Padre uniform. But again, he's higher on the list than Pagan. Is Stammen going to be pitching 7th innings now? Because I don't think that the Padres can consistently keep putting Pagan out there. Because it feels like in these high leverage situations, he just gives up homers and then Tingler pulls them and that's it. And that can't happen because I have a feeling that there's going to be a lot of close games down the stretch. So that's the bullpen. Again, the Padres won this game 8-3, but my takeaways from this series is missed opportunities and not winning games by the amount that they should have, or winning, you know, Wednesday. Tuesday, the offense didn't show up. Wednesday, 8-run second inning, but it was more the Angels giving them runs than the Padres producing those runs. And then giving up too many runs. You should not, you know, you're up 8-0 at one point in the game. You should not be seeing your closer pitch in the 9th inning for a save situation. So those are my takeaways. Padres improved to 74-65 with the win. They're now 1 game up on the Cincinnati Reds in the wild card. Philadelphia lost tonight against Milwaukee. St. Louis, I believe, lost to the Dodgers. So They are, 2.5, 3.5 games back. So that's a okay lead. Obviously not comfortable based on scheduling, which I'll get to in a moment. But right now it seems like Padres against the Reds, for that second wild card. Will that change in a week? Probably, because of schedules. But again, that's why, so the Padres are a game up on Cincinnati, and that's why you would have liked to have like a 3 or 4 game lead, ideally, going into this stretch of now all playoff teams the rest of the way, because they're not going to win every series. Like it seems like Cincinnati will have a great chance of doing, because they're facing teams fighting for draft positioning the rest of the season. So it hurts to lose games that, your pitching puts you in very good spots to win, like Blake Snell on Tuesday. So that's that. A couple more things. Let's talk about the schedule first. 10-game road trip. This is where it starts. This is where the postseason. Now the Padres are playing playoff games the rest of the way against playoff teams, literally. They got 3 games against the Dodgers at Chavez Ravine this weekend. Then they go 4 games against the first place Giants. Then they go 3 games against the Cardinals. That Cardinals series is absolutely huge, obviously, because of where both teams stand, in the standings. With the Cardinals obviously not fighting for the NL Central, but they are fighting for the wild card with us. And right now they're 70 and 68. They're 3.5 back. So let's say the Padres, they're 4-3, which would be, I would take 4-3 the next week against the Dodgers and Giants, to be quite honest. Let's say they're 4-3, but the Cardinals, did better than that in their schedule. Well, then St. Louis goes and beats the Padres in the best of 3 series, 2 out of 3. Now maybe they're like a half game in reach with us. See what I'm saying? It's just the Padres don't have much room for error now, because they just didn't do a good enough job beating the teams that they should have beaten. And now they kind of have to lay in their bed against the playoff teams. Do I believe that they can beat these playoff teams? Yes. But are odds against them also? Yes. Because the offense just isn't really clicking. I do like that, the history of this team this year, they've stepped up against playoff teams. So I guess that's, a positive to take from it. But it's still a really, really scary, daunting few weeks when you look at the schedule and you see Dodgers, Giants repeatedly. And they play the Giants like 10 more times the rest of the season, 10. And we're already in almost middle September, and they still have 10 more against the first place team in the National League West, who isn't going to be giving us their C game, because they're still fighting with the Dodgers, who the Padres are also playing a bunch of games against. They're fighting with them for the division, so they're going to get their A game. So again, 10-game road trip, 3 against the Dodgers, 4 against San Francisco, 3 against St. Louis. I would take 4-3 against the Dodgers and Giants. And then obviously you want to win that St. Louis series. So ideally I would take this road trip going 6-4. I think that's, you can't afford to go any road trips with the losing record, obviously, because of the Reds' schedule, playing the Pirates, Cubs, and Tigers all the time. And the Phillies have an easier schedule as well. St. Louis is tough too. The Padres have the toughest schedule. St. Louis has like the 3rd toughest schedule. So that's good news. But so the 2 teams the Padres are probably going to be worrying about, the most, Cincinnati and Philly. But they can't afford to have losing road trips anymore. I get they're playing playoff teams, but they just can't afford that, because they had plenty of other losing road trips against non-contending teams. That's where the problem is. So you went way low against, non-contending teams. Now you have to play like this against contending teams. So, earlier in the year, they go 1-5 on a road trip against the Mets and the Rockies. Get swept at Coors. Then obviously recently they go 1-7, 1-6 on a road trip They lose 3 out of 4 to the Diamondbacks, get no hit by Tyler Gilbert. Then they get swept by the Rockies at Coors Field. They make CJ Cron look like Tony Gwynn. So they have to win. They have to win these games because they didn't win games earlier in the year. It's as simple as that. Last thing I wanted to get to, Trent Grisham had some interesting comments to Kevin Acee of the San Diego Union Tribune on his Padres daily morning newsletter. Grisham said no comment to him when he was asked about being platooned in center with Tatis against lefties, even though he's actually hitting better against lefties this year than righties in terms of batting average. So I thought that was kind of weird. But the Padres are going with right on left. They're trying to get the regular, not the reverse split lefty where they do better against lefties like Grisham. They're trying to get if there's a lefty pitching, they're trying to get as many righties as possible in the lineup. So that's why you saw on, what was that, Tuesday night, I think, Grisham didn't play or didn't start. And that was because there was a lefty on the mound. And so they wanted an all-righty outfield. Pham, Tatis, Myers. That's why Tatis was in center, because Grisham wasn't there. They wanted the all-right-handed hitting outfield. But Tingler said he wouldn't do that. He's not permanently platooning Grisham, and I don't believe he should be platooned. I think that if you're going to platoon people, it should be the Calder of Myers and Pham. Do I get that the Padres need offense, and if Grisham's in a slump, maybe Pham, Myers, and Tatis is the better combination? Yes, I understand that, but the Padres, Grisham's still a good hitter. He was hitting leadoff. He hit leadoff. Didn't he hit leadoff this series? I think he hit leadoff today on Wednesday. So the notion that Grisham is defender only, no, he's not. But a big reason why I want Grisham in there is because of his defense. There's plenty of firepower in the lineup if Grisham is slumping to be okay with Grisham slumping. You have Fernando Tatis Jr., the MVP. You have Manny Machado. You have Jake Cronenworth. You have Will Myers or Tommy Pham, who you're paying a bunch of money to. You have Austin Nola, who should be a pretty decent hitting catcher. So you have Jurickson Profar, who's put together some pretty dang good at-bats when he's playing first over Hosmer. So you have options. You have plenty, I think at least, plenty of firepower that could make up for Grisham if he's slumping. Grisham's one of my favorite players because, I love his swag, love what he brings to the team, and he's great defensively in center field. And I think that's valuable. I think that putting a shortstop in center field like Tatis, while he has the range, I think that he's probably more, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think he spent more time in right field, whether that's at batting practice, those couple weeks leading up to his activation off the IL, whether that's in games. And I think so. Put Tatis in right field, stick him there, and play Trent Grisham. I think it's as simple as that. Maybe that doesn't feel like a strong case, but he's a Gold Glove center fielder for a reason, and he's a lefty that can spread out the lineup, right? Even out the lineup a little bit, and even if he is slumping, you get his defense, which is huge, and they should have plenty of weapons offensively to make up for that if he is slumping. So that's where I stand on Grisham. Another comment statement that Acee said was about how Trent Grisham and the Padres were talking about an extension before the season. Grisham was approached about that by the Padres. Nothing happened there, and Acee said that they will likely, discuss about an extension before next season So maybe that's spring training. If, Padres have a lot of things in their to-do list based on how the season finishes. So that's something to watch out for. I think Grisham is someone that should be here long-term because the slumping hitter that we've seen recently, or, at times this year, that's not who Grisham is. And even if it is, he provides great, great, great defense. But in terms of my optimism of an extension getting done, I truly believe, 90% believe an extension will get done. He wants to be here. It seems like he loves, playing for the Padres. However, I think that coming off a great year, if he wasn't going to sign the extension coming off a great year last year, maybe the Padres were lowballing him. But then he's certainly not going to sign it, I don't think, this year coming off a lesser year compared, a less great statistical year compared to 2020. I get 2020 was 2 months, but still, he still had a great year then and still didn't want to sign it. I don't know. I'm obviously not in the building or in the front office, with Preller sitting there. I wish I was, but I'm not. So I don't know, what the offer was, or even if they talked to, maybe it was just years, or maybe they didn't even talk about a structure, a contract extension structure yet. Maybe it was just sitting down with him and saying, hey, we want you to be here. Do you want to be here with us? Do you want the partnership to continue past the 4 years of control? Now, the 4 years of control is another thing. 4 years is a while. And so I think I was in this boat with the Tatis thing. I didn't think that there was a need to rush an extension. Tatis maybe was a little different. I get, because the better, the way, if he won MVP this year and they hadn't signed him to an extension yet, I think that they would have had to give him even more than $340 million like he, signed for. So that was good on their part, but it was a big injury question. Now with Grisham, the injury questions, I get he had an injury at the beginning of the year. What was it, like a knee injury? I don't think that, that's not obviously long-term. Grisham hasn't dealt with, the shoulder subluxations and all that stuff. So injury-wise, I'm not concerned. The only thing I would wait maybe and be a little, cautious about, again, depending on the contract. I don't know what the contract, would look like. But one thing I would be careful about is use the 4 years to your advantage if you're the Padres, I think. Just make sure that he can, produce consistently. Again, he's going to be there with the glove. He might move to right field if C.J. Abrams comes up and plays center. Who knows? But I would just use the 4 years to your advantage if I'm, A.J. Preller and Peter Seidler, and just make sure that Grisham, wants to be here. I'm not questioning that. I know that I think that he wants to be, but just obviously it doesn't hurt to reaffirm that he wants to be here. Keep asking that and really check on, or just make sure that you know what you're getting out of him offensively, because I don't think you want to get in a situation like you did with Myers. Obviously, they're probably not giving Grisham $80 million. Maybe, but they're probably not. But with Myers, it's a big contract, and now he's platooning, right? He's seeing more bench time. And I don't want that to happen with Grisham. I don't want, the Padres to have to deal with that. Because that's obviously less money that they can go spend on, pitching and whatnot. So that's the Grisham scenario. Again, Kevin Acee of the Union Tribune said that the Padres have approached Grisham about an extension, the two sides, and it looks like they're going to, resume those talks at the end of the season, before this next season begins in 2022. So that's the Grisham stuff. Again, Padres split this series with the Angels. They lose 4-0 on Tuesday in a game that they probably should have won. Snell pitched his butt off, but you can't win when you score 0 runs. Then they win on Wednesday, but they should have won by way more than what they did. Melanson should not have pitched in that game. But, 8 runs in the second inning, not going to, say the offense is back. But I am encouraged by what I saw from Adam Frazier. I know it's one game, but hopefully his approach, can be consistent. What else? So Padres 74-65, a game up on Cincinnati. Next guest, I did want to unveil that before we get out of here. Next guest, 97.3 The Fan, producer of Ben and Woods. We had Stephen Wood on earlier this year. The producer of that show, Paul Reindl, he is definitely loved by Ben and Woods fans. And so he will sit down with me on Thursday. So today, when you're listening to this, we'll talk Padres. We'll talk about a lot of stuff. We'll talk about Tingler, his job security, what we're seeing out of the offense, what we're seeing out of the starting pitching, what we're seeing out of the bullpen, some quick hitters with him. It'll be a fun conversation. If you know any questions that you want me to ask him, you can obviously hit me up on Instagram at Talking Friars, on the Twitter, Instagram, social channels. And until next time, again, this has been episode 55. It's been fun to talk about. Padres' big road trip coming up. I think that they need to go, 6-4, and I'll be happy with that. Until next time, Ben Fadden here, signing off saying, let's go Padres.